I'm an accidental innovator in an industry that most people know nothing about, and those that do aren't talking about it. Could you imagine finding out that you couldn't become a parent, or being born gay and not knowing how you could have a biological child, or an illness such as cancer, kidney failure, or other diseases taking your fertility? That's where I come in. My name is Leia Swanberg. I'm a mom to 5 amazing daughters, a wife, and the owner of Canadian Fertility Consulting, Egg Helpers, and Sacred Surrogacy, the innovation in our industry. I started CFC in 2007 after having been a gestational surrogate twice and carrying 3 children for 2 amazing couples who have become 2 sets of amazing parents. And I had no support from the agency that I worked with, and I thought that I could do better. I borrowed $500 from my now ex-husband, and he told me in 30 days if I didn't pay him back, it was a hobby and not a business. CFC grew slowly, 10% each year, until 2011, when a nightmare began that allowed my aha moment and the innovation to be born.
The case that brought the RCMP to our offices was a tip-off by the FBI. There was a lawyer that I was referring to in the United States who was actually part of a baby selling ring out of the Ukraine. I had no idea. I thought that there were failed surrogacies, so surrogacies in which the parents had walked away, and there were these vulnerable women who were pregnant and these babies with nowhere to go. And so I referred clients to this lawyer, and it was customary that these lawyers that I worked with in the US would pay a referral fee for business. I accepted those referral fees in good faith, A, that was something I was able to do, and B, that these were in fact failed surrogacies. I knew that my connection with her was problematic. However, I had no idea that the RCMP were going to knock on the door, you know, pull guns on us, and essentially shut down my business. I wasn't able to communicate with my clients. I wasn't able to communicate with the reporters knocking on my door. I wasn't able to say anything. And it killed me because I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to talk to the police. I wanted to tell them, like, this is a mistake. This is not me. When they served the warrant, it talked about baby selling. It talked about paying surrogates, paying egg donors, fraud. You know, they decided to investigate me on 27 criminal charges. And 26 of them I didn't care about. But when they said fraud, like, all I have is my name, that was it. That to me is all I've ever had is my name. And it was devastating. I sat in the office and thought, my phone is never going to ring again. Who is going to call, and who is going to even want to work with me after the National Post articles and everything else? And the phone rang, and the phone rang, and the phone rang. And, you know, in the news, it said a lot of hurtful things, but it also said I had a surrogacy business, and people hadn't known that that was an option in Canada.
The fertility world hoped that my case would provide clarity to a muddy industry. A law had been established in 2004 with no teeth, and the RCMP left to investigate it. The law was simple. I couldn't be paid for matching intended parents with surrogates or egg donors, and I couldn't pay surrogates or egg donors for anything other than their expenses. The penalty in Canada for matching intended parents with a surrogate or an egg donor, or paying a surrogate mother or an egg donor for anything other than an expense, is a $500,000 fine, 10 years in prison for myself or any hopeful parents participating in what I mentioned above. During the case, there were many dark moments, and during one of them, I made this crazy promise, and I said to God that I would change the industry. I would make it better if I could just stay out of jail. As soon as my case was over in 2014, I began this spiritual quest. I began this search to figure out who I was after going through such an intense crisis. I wanted to make it better, and I wanted to do better for the amazing women, the surrogates, the egg donors, the intended mothers who, by no fault of their own, were in this situation where they needed my help and they needed the help of a surrogate or an egg donor. I ended up at a pregnancy retreat and met Annie Dalter, who's the creator of the most beautiful pregnancy program called Sacred Pregnancy. And after an amazing week with her and learning about this beauty way of pregnancy and this way to honor women, I knew this was it. Seeing a surrogate pregnancy, not as a medical condition, but as a beautiful rite of passage, was what was missing. So Annie and I partnered to create Sacred Surrogacy. This program filled my soul with a passion that had been lost during this legal battle. It reinvented me, it reinvented this industry that needed a reinvention. It was an innovative idea that grew to a program not only to honor surrogate mothers, but to honor egg donors, to honor intended mothers and intended fathers who were faced with this beautiful way of building their families. Sacred Surrogacy has partnered with CFC, so Canadian Fertility Consulting, with Egg Helpers, and with many other agencies across the globe to create standards that we hope the rest of the industry will adopt, such as allowing only single embryo transfers, to limit the number of multiple pregnancies that we all know are unsafe for the women as well as the babies that are born through in vitro fertilization. As well, we've educated women and men and our clients about the risks of the medication that they'll be taking, and talk to them about limiting this medication use and empowering patients with information that will help them make the best decisions for their health and the health of their surrogate and their donor. We've created online programs in a community that spans across the globe, honoring and supporting people that are going through this absolutely unique and beautiful experience. We have online programs, meditations, and tools that support healthy outcomes for women and the babies that they're carrying. Here's a look into one of our retreats.
I am trusting myself to open to the well of blessings pouring down.
When we talk about sisterhood, generally it has to do with a group of women who are uplifting to one another, who hold space for one another, who are non-judgmental of one another, who are all potentially going through a similar kind of life experience.
Sweet, sweet innocence, a golden rainbow's end is bursting from within. Creator of life, I am abundantly divine. I am rooted in source, powerful life force, creator of life.
Sacred Surrogacy invites surrogates in our program, as well as working with other agencies or independently, to come and spend a weekend with us and share in this beautiful pregnancy. We have classes throughout the weekend and just an amazing time of sisterhood, and it is absolutely a pleasure. During the creation of Sacred Surrogacy, it was truly important that it modeled the Sacred Pregnancy program, which is a program built on the beauty way of pregnancy, releasing fears around upcoming pregnancy, setting intentions around the upcoming birth of a baby, and we really wanted to share that with our surrogates and allow them to feel the true embrace of this sisterhood and the true love that that we as the organizers and coordinators have for them.
Because there are so many things, and even today, so many things that hold me back from my best life, from who I really was here to be. How we're here to really let go of whatever it is that's holding us back.
And remember, I alone hold the key to this ancient mystery. Surrender and remember, I alone hold the key to this ancient mystery. Creator of life, I am abundantly divine. I am rooted in source, powerful life force. Creator of life, I am abundantly divine. I am rooted in source, powerful life force.
Coming full circle from the RCMP investigation to creating Sacred Surrogacy and truly giving back to the infertility world and the community. We have 250 surrogates each year that attend our retreats, and we have intended parent retreats now that span across the globe and are translated into French and Spanish and are happening in France and Spain and across Canada and the US. And with the advent of the internet and our social media platforms, combined with our innovative mobile applications, we've been able to reach people around the globe and really share with them that although they are going through infertility or although they are becoming a surrogate or a donor, that there's this sisterhood or this brotherhood or this community that is there to just honor and support them and take care of them. And whether people are working with our other programs or not, these programs are open to them. There's still no clarity on the laws around surrogacy and egg donation in Canada. We hope that my case would clarify it. However, with our current government, the Liberals are opening it up, and the health minister is reviewing the outdated no-teeth laws and has asked the industry for submissions. They've asked doctors to tell the stories of these women who, after a cancer diagnosis, are going through an egg retrieval process prior to having chemotherapy so that they can have a genetic child. They're talking to the transgender community and getting the education out there to ensure that they're able to as well have their own genetic child. They're talking to same-sex couples about education and the lack of information within our medical community that would allow them, again, to become genetic parents in the future. So the government's asked for these submissions, and we wrote submissions as a body, as surrogacy agencies in Canada, as a group with fertility lawyers and fertility doctors, and those were easy. I could talk about these amazing people who, just by pure circumstances, needed our help, and share the stories of the surrogates in Canada who are not exploited, who are not treated poorly, whose expenses are covered and that they are filled up by this journey and it does not take away from their life. But when it came to explain my personal story as a surrogate, it was beautiful and it was filled with hope, and it's about two couples that have become parents and who have amazing children that I helped create. When I shared about egg donation and the 6 times I had given my eggs to women who had had premature ovarian failure, and it's something that I talk very openly about. There are 15 children out there somewhat related to me. And as I tried to write that down, I tried to keep it simple, because it can get super confusing for people when we start talking about our children and that these are my kids. And I finally had to cut through the shit and say, you can't own a kid, and you know when they're 13 you can't own them because they tell you to fuck off, and you realize, holy shit, I don't own you. That's just not a thing. And so I really had to get real about that and say, I have the immense and beautiful opportunity to spend time with 5 of the coolest, you know, from a 26-year-old to a 1-year-old. And those children I get to share time with. And, you know, it's an honor. But do I own them? No. Are my eggs mine? Well, yeah, they are, but that doesn't mean every egg I have is going to produce a child. But I know that when I reached out to those people that have children who are genetically connected to myself and my kids, and I said, I'm writing a submission for Health Canada. You know, what do you want me to say about having gotten my eggs? And, you know, a couple, they live in Calgary, we're super close, and their kids are now 5. They said, couldn't you have warned us? And I was like, what do you mean? Our kids are crazy. And I was like, no, I couldn't have. And, you know, I talked to another couple and I said, you know, I'm writing this personal submission and I don't know what to say about egg donation because I believe in it, I work in it every day. We help 30 families a month through egg donation alone, and I get it. I get it. They take your eggs, they put it in someone else, they have a baby, or their surrogate carries the baby for them, and that's it. And I thought I had it until I had to start writing about it. And I realized, wow, okay, I really need to think about this. And as many people have talked about their values, and my values are that people should have the right to become parents. It's a thing. And so I ended with that in the submission. I talked about my legal case. I talked about having a gun to my head and how I thought that was a little bit crazy for Health Canada to send the RCMP there that way. I talked about the misinformation. I talked about going through this legal battle and pleading guilty to 2 regulatory offenses because I was guilty of paying donors and surrogates without receipts. Because I thought that it was okay. I thought that this kind of law, you know, that was for other people. That wasn't what these women were doing. And their expenses that they were asking for sounded reasonable. Sounding reasonable isn't enough for the government, I now know. It's like when you do your taxes and you give them an approximate amount, they're not interested. They want to see that receipt. And so, you know, we changed our business practices. We created Sacred Surrogacy. We began honoring women and men and going through these experiential practices that you saw in the video of releasing fears around the pregnancy, the birth, our own lives, setting intentions as you saw in that salt bowl. And these women started growing and they started changing. And I put that in my submission and then I erased it because it was a personal submission. So I started talking about how I started changing and how these experiential processes that I was taking these other people through really weren't about those other people. They were about me and about how, as a mentor, as a mom, as a business owner, as you know, all these things that we are, that it really doesn't matter because when the police knock on your door and put a gun to your head, none of it matters. And what does matter is how we honor ourselves, how we honor the people in our lives, and how in that beauty grows, and you know, in that our business has grown. We have over 200 surrogates that are pregnant right now for couples within Canada or around the world. Canada has become a leader in surrogacy, and I believe it's because of our Sacred Surrogacy program. You know, we were in Spain last month, and there were women protesting outside naked with signs that said, "My body's not for sale." And I was like, I'm a feminist. Yeah, my body's not for sale either. You're right. This isn't about selling a body. This is about honoring women. And with that, our program has grown. With that, we've encouraged and supported other agencies to adopt our Sacred Surrogacy program. And it's been an absolute blessing. And like, I think it was the school principal earlier that said, you know, innovation happens after failure. And that's exactly what happened in my life. was after that failure. And after that aha moment, innovation happened, and I'm so grateful for that moment and all of the moments that I've had so far. And so thank you everyone.